welcome the next speaker, who is Chirag Tanna, director of Ink ID. He's basically been a leader and a guru in the IP space for a long time, as long as I've known him. And the question we have presented to Chirag is, should investors and founders value IP, intellectual property, more than they do? Because there have been a lot of moments, I know for Chirag, where he has been pulling his hair out with the kind of treatment that investors and founders give to IP, and the dismissiveness sometimes that he talks about. But without stealing Chirag's thunder, Chirag, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sachin. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yeah, so there are two things. In the Indian context, I'll talk about the different kind of IP mindsets that are there currently in 2023, and at the global level. So I think there's a slide that I am sharing. I think I'm sure, I hope everybody is able to see this.
Yeah.
So on the global level, I had given a talk many years ago to a VC, PE community to identify what are the different kind of IP mindsets that are there. So the question that I had hypothetically posed was, is intellectual property a myth? Is it a buzz? Is it a giant? Or is it a mind-festered battleground? Because everybody seems to want it in today's day and age. Developing nations everybody is focusing on intellectual property rights. The government itself is tooting the horn of protect your intellectual property rights in today's day and age. All the developed countries have become developed countries because they have been able to assert and transact and enforce the intellectual property rights that they have built over the years. So whether it's patents, trademarks, copyrights, designs, whatever thoughts that your brain manifests, they were able to not only protect it, but they have been able to enforce it. I think that is one of the key differentiators between a developing country and a developed nation. So on this slide, you'll see the different kind of IP mindsets. The very first typical ideal startup culture from an Indian perspective, where we judiciously protect what is there, as opposed to the second Silicon Valley culture in a developed country, where everything and anything under the sun is to be protected. So if you are a company in India with a technology, we would select only the best out of the bucket and protect, because we always correlate R&D with costs right from the word go. If it was a startup of Silicon Valley, irrespective, so something like Fitbit, something as intangible as Fitbit has a portfolio of over 300 patent applications. What that means is that if you were to enter into the wearables game, you would have to analyze whether those 300 odd patents are valuable or not, and automatically a moat is built around you. Whether they are valid, worthy, does not really matter. Then there are companies like Apple, where everything and everything under the sun is protected, whether it's the staircase of an Apple store, whether it's the layout of an Apple store, the box of an Apple store, the entire Apple versus Samsung story, where only the design of a rectangular phone with rounded corners was protected. They are the biggest players. The second last was somebody like Samsung, who started with copying what Apple was doing and progressed to capturing the market. There are pure play IP players who do not have a product, but have made billions of dollars by enforcing their IP rights against Facebook, Microsoft, Google. Those are those companies, typically, again, in the US, Vernetex. US is a country where people have figured out exactly how to monetize IP, even if there is not a product around it. And then there is something as outlier as Theranos, who still, in the IP world, has a brilliant IP portfolio. Everybody knows there is no product around it, but their patents get granted even today. So what some outlier like Theranos did was they figured out where the theories of the IP world end, where the realities of the practical world start, and figured out that sweet spot in between, where they played investors all around the world from, I think, 2004 to 2015, when they got caught. But everywhere, in each of these layers, IP played an important role on a global scenario. In the Indian context, now we have startups who are doing outstanding stuff in healthcare, fintech, the typical startups who want to play the PEVC game. They diligently do protect their intellectual property rights. Because their investors ask for it right now. Whether the investors understand it or not is still a question, but everybody asks for IP. And B is the moment these companies become a little bigger, or they start venturing into developed worlds, that is where again this question is asked to them. On the second level in India, where IP is now valued is at the MSME level also, where so we have clients where they make lunch boxes, but where design is a crucial element. So, but those designs are protected and those designs are enforced also very regularly. So those communities come to us to see whether they are infringing on a particular design or not. So IP is being taken seriously in that world. And then the simplest form of intellectual property right, forget about complex inventions or designs, trademarks, basic names, ownership of basic names. If you are in the D2C segment, if you are in the retail segment, forget the legal world. Amazons of the world are now forcing you to have trademarks. If you don't have trademarks, they will not list you on Amazon. So it has become as simple as that. So across a horizontal variety of layers or a vertical variety of layers, IP has become important. Founders are giving value to it. Again, as I said, it may not be for their interest. The start of where IP is given importance is immaterial, but in the long run, only people who have valued IP, those companies have matters, because I've been doing IP for 20 years now, and over the last 10 odd years I've been focusing on startups, 13 years actually. In these 13 years we have seen two life cycles of startups going from 0 to 100, and then we have seen exactly of at what level IP plays an important role. And so because we work in the Indian context, I work in the Singaporean context, where we don't have unlimited money when it comes to R&D, where we don't have unlimited money when it comes to protection of IP, where every resource has to be justified. So we came out with a model where we could spend very less at the beginning, and then as and how the company progressed, you pay more and more, and you file in more and more jurisdictions. So on this slide, this is the typical chart that we follow. What should be done at the pilot stage, what should be done at the testing stage, what should be done at the seed round stage, what should be done when a proper Series A funding happens. So IP progression, product journey, and investment, if all of these three are aligned together, then I think there is a reasonable manner in which impact can be done, right? So toward the end, this is, again, as I said, I've seen two life cycles where people have gone from 0 to 100. So this is one catchphrase that I have only written. This is my article, so I'll read it out. It may seem irrelevant if you mathematically equate intangibles with growth, because at the start it is always it is an R&D activity. So it's always a pit that you're putting money into. You don't know what is going to come out at the other end. Getting intellectual property rights, actually owning them from start to stake, also takes a long time. So you don't know whether whatever you're planting, when it will see the day of light. Just exactly what you're doing with your startup. But eventually, startups with IP can do to big companies what big companies can do to startups. Basically, if big companies are bullying you, if startups have IP, they can bully big companies with their IP as well. And across the world, IP, the legalities, the courts around who work with IP have become proficient enough. They have made sure that IP rights are protected in their spirit and scope. So in today's day and age, founders are valuing IP. As I said, the reasons may be unknown, but founders are valuing IP for a variety of reasons. So I'll end here.
Great. Thank you so much, Chirag.
Yeah.
Knowing, and I have read this article before, so knowing your viewpoint, I wasn't expecting anything different. And that's an awesome quote, by the way. What startups with IP can do to big companies, and I'm sure founders across the country, across the globe, need to take note of this. Thank you so much, Chirag. Chirag is also one of our resident experts looking at the IP part for co-founders team, and the way Kathy looks after the whole SMA listing. And once again, thank you so much, Chirag, for this awesome enlightening session.